Do you ever just wish you could be a swamp witch and just like hex people for walking into your forest and just like pet animals and occasionally maybe seduce a princess? Hello babies, welcome to the cauldron. Hi guys, my name is Monique, welcome back to my channel, Bookwitch Reviews. Today I am going to do the first part of a video called 20 Years of Reading. And I've seen a lot of booktubers do like the last decade of reading. I thought it would be really fun to do my own sort of twist on it since I am a foreigner. I was born and raised in Denmark, so some of these books might not be familiar to you. So yeah. Let's get to it. Also, this is sparkling water. Get your head out of the gutter. It's a work night. Let's get to it. I have a good long list and yeah, let's start with, so obviously I couldn't start this list without doing a J.K. Rowling book, which is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This is a massive series to me. We're just going to pretend J.K. Rowling doesn't exist right now. It's a massive series to me because my dad used to read this series to me and my brothers when I was younger. When this book came out, I was waiting for my Hogwarts letter for 700 years. I don't think I need to explain this book to anyone. This is classic, middle grade, love. Harry Potter. 2000s. This is what I was doing. I was reading and I enjoyed it, and I was still reading mainly in Danish. 2001 was the year that I found out that Tamora was a thing. And I don't know why, but I don't feel like she gets spoken enough about on Bookstagram or Booktube. And I don't know if that's because she's like a staple or like a classic, but she is literally my favorite, if not one of my favorite authors of all time. This is her first middle grade book. I think it's one of her first ever published book called Alanna. It's the first book in the Lioness Quartet series. I can't actually remember what this is called. I'll put in the like actual thing. I am pretty sure I own every Tamora book she has ever published, and I think she's the only one I can say that about. But anyway, this is a beautiful, beautiful middle grade about a girl who wants to be a knight, who then swaps places with her twin brother, and this is then the series. So in 2013, I was 13-year-old. That's when you start becoming a teenager. That's when you start being a weirdo. This series might not say a lot to anyone who is from outside Scandinavia. This is, I'm guessing it will be translated to The Silver Horse. It's by Lene, who is a huge children's novelist in Denmark. She wrote Shamer's Daughter, which I have somewhere around here, without a cover because my dog was a shit and ate the cover of my book. And basically, Shamer's Daughter is like a massive series in Denmark. I believe it's been turned into a movie, but I'm not entirely sure. And I don't know if anyone outside of Scandinavia has ever heard about it. But the series, if you are interested, is about a girl who comes from a long line of like maternal women who has this I guess magical gift where if they look someone in the eye, they can make them tell the truth. So they like shame them into the truth. And if you can hear the wind, it's because England is gone fucking crazy windy. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to read some middle grade that is from outside of England and is not American, Lene Kaaberbøl is like amazing. Okay. 2002 was the year that my mom gave me, I think, the very first series, and this is the one. This is the first book of Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials, which in English is called Northern Lights. In American, it was translated to The Golden Compass, which is what it is called in Danish. This is my favorite cover of all time, and I recently found it back in my house and I thought I'd lost it, and I've literally had these books for 20 years. They're so good, and maybe they weren't what you were supposed to be reading when you were 12, but I was reading very intensely and very fast at this point. And if you don't know what the Northern Lights and His Dark Materials is about, it's about a girl called Lyra who is in an alternative dimension alternative world where people have demons, which are like a personified like animal companion that like swap shapes, and then when you grow older they stop changing. And this series is about Lyra, who ends up going on a massive adventure to find her like friend, and like it's intrigue and older. And I wrote like an assignment on this in university, and I can't explain to people how much I love this book. And this is just like, when I think of what I read when I was younger, this is like what comes to mind, because I can't get over how much I love this book. This is just like, this is so good. It's 2004. I am 14 years old and I'm reading Eragon, and I obviously read it in Danish, but we are taking some massive steps for me into the foray of like classic fantasy. And this is a book about a boy who finds an egg that turns into a dragon. I don't think that's spoilery. I'm pretty sure you can read that from the back. Oh yeah, no, it says. Okay, so here we go. One boy, one dragon, a world of adventure. When Eragon finds a polished blue stone in the forest, he thinks he is the lucky discovery of a poor farm boy. Perhaps he will buy his family meat for the winter. But when the stone brings a dragon hatchling, Eragon soon realizes he has stumbled upon a legacy nearly as old as the Empire itself. I'm not saying anyone's names here. This is Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Paolini? Yeah, Paolini. In 2005, there was a craze going around in pretty much, I think, everywhere. And it is, of course, Twilight I'm talking about. There were vampires everywhere, which, mighty, let's be honest, Team Jacob for life, okay? That's just how it is. I don't have Twilight with me right now, but I do have The Host, which I think is an underappreciated book that Stephanie Meyer wrote as well. And I love the book. If you don't know what Twilight is about, where have you been for the last 20 years? Twilight is a vampire romance thing. People can look back at it and think as many bad things about it you want. I still think the teenage girls knows that if like a 3,000-year-old vampire wanna do you, stab him with a stake and just like. Anyways, if you want to talk stable fantasy, like the classes of fantasy, there are people up there where you are like, these are the people that everyone should know about. McCaffrey. This is a bind up of my favorites of her books, which is called Dragon Song and Dragon Drum and something else. This is the Danish version. It is one of my only Danish books that I can continue to read in Danish, because otherwise I've just swapped over and read them in English, because that's who I am. This is also, in 2006 was the time when I did start reading permanently in English, because a lot of the books that I wanted to read, I couldn't get them in Danish. Like, I had to wait for too long, so I just was like, fine, we'll just pop over. I think it's a book about a girl who lives on Pern, and Pern is a planet that Anne McCaffrey has written quite a few books in. It has dragons who are like, who can go between places. It's like a weird magical way of doing things, but it's also amazing. And this is not about dragon riders, but it is about a girl who wants to be a bard, and basically her family's not very nice to her, but she ends up finding some other friends who will help her get to her destiny. And it's just, it's so beautiful. And like, look at this book, look at that beautiful book. And I'm just like, I love it so much. A little sneaky extra book around here, and it is For a Corner by Anne McCaffrey as well, which is one of my first forays into sci-fi. This is about a unicorn girl who is found by a group of bachelors on a spaceship, and it's basically how they try to raise her the best they can while trying to figure out where she's come from. And it is one of my like dearly beloved books, and when I found it many years later, because I thought I dreamt it up, I was like ecstatic. This book is so good, and I'm just like, oh, and it's called A Corner, and there's like a whole series, and I need to find it because it's just going to be one long nostalgia trip for me, and I'm just like, I can't hack it. Can't hack how good and beautiful this is. 2007, and I am 17 years old, and I still live in Denmark, and I am on the vampire train, and I am on the shifter train, and I am on the urban fantasy kick, and I will read anything I get my hands on, including Kim Harris, who is like the staple urban fantasy, supernatural, like goddess. Her is the first book in the series of Rachel Morgan, who is like a witch. 40 years ago, a genetically engineered virus killed half of the world's human population and exposed creatures of dreams and nightmares that had until then lived in secret along humanity. Rachel Morgan is a runner with the Inland Runner Services, apprehending criminals throughout modern-day Cincinnati. She's also a witch. Used to confronting criminal vampires, dark witches, and homicidal werewolves, Rachel's latest assignment apprehending cable-stealing magic student and tax-evading leprechauns have prompted her to break her 30-year contract with the IS and starting her own agency. But no one quits the IS. Marked for death, Rachel is a dead witch walking unless she can appease her former employees and pay off her contract by exposing the city's most prominent citizen as a Dark Lord, but making an enemy of the ambiguous Trent Calamac proves even more deadly than leaving the IS. This is so good, and this series is so truly like these series, and I have a lot of feelings about them. We're in 2008. There's only one book that everyone is talking about at this point, and it's The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. And this series, if you don't know about it, it is set in like a futuristic dystopian world where we follow Katniss Everdeen on her sort of survival trip to the capital. That was a really bad review, but if you don't know what this book is about already, I don't want to spoil it for you, because then you've been living under a rock and having a really nice time. Like, I don't want to ruin that for you. And I'm just like, it's good. If you haven't read it yet, you really should. Also, there's a prequel coming out. I don't know how to feel about that. Am I even going to read it? Yes, most likely. Am I sure how much I'm going to like it? I don't know. I don't like the title. I'm just putting that out there. I've said it. In 2009, I can't talk about this without talking about Laurell K. Hamilton, who wrote the Anita Blake series, who is like the Kim Harrison series, a supernatural, magical realism, urban fantasy series that follows a woman. This one follows Anita Blake, who is a vampire hunter and necromancer. And then there is sex. There is so much sex. Like the first couple of books. So the first book is hiding down here somewhere. Much tinier. It's called Guilty Pleasures. And there's less sex. There's still sex, but there's less sex. More like murder plot. They're all like thriller, suspense sort of books, because Anita Blake has a tendency to get into some weird shit and then it's really bad. And I somehow started this series on book 11 because I wanted this book and I took it home, and I like some series you just stuck with for life. And even now, when her books are more sex than ever, I will still read them, and I will read them forever, and it will become really clear why in the other half of this series, because I had some years where all I pretty much read was smut. And I won't apologize for that. Just saying. If you don't know what Anita Blake is about, I'm just going to read you the synopsis of the very first book. No one knows the dark desires of the soul better than the New York Times best-selling author Laurell K. Hamilton. In Guilty Pleasures, she introduces Anita Blake, vampire hunter. Anita, small, dark, and dangerous, but when the city's most powerful vampire comes to her for help, Anita is faced with her greatest fear, a man capable of arousing in her a hunger strong enough to match his own. Do you understand why I was obsessed with this when I turned 18? Because I can't explain it any better than that. She also has the first series, Meredith Gentry, which is like with fae instead of like vampire sort of things. And it is like, it's the good stuff. It's what I read way before I read The Cruel Prince, okay? I've been reading fae shit for a very long time, and there's some dangerous boys in there. Just, yeah. I don't know why I'm sounding like this, okay? Last but not least, we have 2010's book, which is Trudi Canavan's The Magician's Guild, which is like a Class A fantasy classic staple series, I would say. Basically, this is a trilogy. I believe there is a sequel and also maybe a prequel, but I'm just going to read you the back because I can't explain what this is about. Anyway, so each year the magicians of Imadin gather to purge the city streets of the vagrant urchins and miscreants. Masters of the disciplines of magic, they know that no one can oppose them, but their protective shield is not as impenetrable as they believe. For as the mob are herded from the city, a young street girl, furious at the authorities' treatment of her family and friends, hurls a stone at the shield, putting all her rage behind it. To the amazement of all who bear witness, the stone passes unhindered through the barrier and renders a magician unconscious. In this unconceivable act, and the guild's worst fears have realized, an untrained magician is loose on the streets. She must be found, and quickly, before her uncontrollable power unleash forces that will destroy both her and the city that is her home. This is a classic. I reread it. I reread it in 2019. And this is still good. It's still so good. It has a bit of a slow build. It's amazing. There's a sneaky slow burn. It's so good. That's it, team. This is the first 10 years of my 20 years of reading video. The other half of the video will hopefully be up in the end of the week. I'm hoping, like, for myself to not be a procrastinating asshole. But if you would like to subscribe, please hit that subscribe button. Watch me do funny shit while I do weird stuff. And yeah, I'm really excited about this journey. All of my social media is in the links down below. I will be back soon. Bye. I need to stop saying